Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Story Behind the Stories with the Neepawa Banner Press for the Friday, March 21st, 2025 edition of the newspaper here. I'm your host this week, Casper Wehrhahn, a writer, journalist, well, same thing. I meant to say writer, photographer, and archivist for the Neepawa Banner Press. And I'm here with co-host Ken Waddell. Very happy to have you here, editor, publisher.
Good to be here.
Right, and we have a lot of good news stories in the paper this week, and I mean that both in the sense of I feel from my perspective it's the stories themselves are good content, they're very valuable for the readership, and in the sense that it's good news to hear about. And of course there's a lot more in the paper as well that we won't be able to touch on because there's only so many minutes in, well, 30 minutes. So make sure you do pick up a hard copy of the paper to go more in depth in the stories that we're talking about, and of course take a look at the ones that we don't have time for on the show. But getting right off to the start here on the front page is our first good news story here, and that is actually taking us down the road into Gladstone to the William Morton Collegiate Institute here. And got a good boost there, Ken, of a total community effort of just over $16,000 to support the band program. I mean, that's a really darn good number there for that.
That is significant. Several donations plus the one large donation from the Legion, as the check on the front page shows, for $12,000. There's lots of detail there, and kudos to all the people who are involved, and band teacher Sean Gertson, smiling face in the middle there. Of course he's smiling because he's a happy guy, but all the time, but he's especially happy when he's receiving a check for his band program for the musical instruments for $12,000.
Absolutely. I mean, what a thing to put a smile on your face, right? And, it's going to something good. I mean, it's going into the school there, so it's bolstering one of the educational programs there. I mean, music is a big thing for a lot of people, and it's kind of universal. I mean, the community definitely sees the value in supporting this program so that they can get what they need to get. And what they need to get actually is some new instruments, not just for the increased students that are in the program, because they have more students than they did before in the program, so they need additional to what they have currently, but they're also looking at replacing old instruments that are kind of at their due date, so to speak, so getting those refreshed with some replacements there and keeping that going. Well, they're going to get a lot of use. I mean, they go to band performances for, local events and other concerts, and travel and do band trips and all sorts of events. So that'll be very good for them to have, not just in class, but out of class as well, doing everything that they do.
I bet you some of those wind instruments, those old ones, were blown out.
Oh, yes. For sure.
And the headline says, "I was blown away." So okay. Hopefully there is some wind instruments in this purchase. Otherwise our headline won't have quite the double meaning.
Oh, yes, that would be an extra bonus for sure. I mean, this is mentioned in the story as well, but I love sort of talking to Sean about this and hearing his perspective on, how he perceived the community support just from the broader community, and being like, that was like really amazing. And then talking about how the Legion had heard about it and, being invited to the meeting to like pitch, what the band program needs this money for, and, how much that might be and everything. And he was like, I didn't expect to get like a crazy amount or anything. I was just like listing more than I really expected I would get from this. All stuff that was needed, but you don't typically, when you go to certain things, expect to get everything that you're hoping to get, right? And yeah, the response was just like, nope, okay, what do you need for this? And he's like, oh, okay. And well, they got it. I mean, the response from the Legion was really amazing. So the broader community and then the community groups stepping up and supporting in that way is fantastic.
Well, I think it shows, Casper, that the legions in most, if not all our smaller communities, I mean, Neepawa is a smaller community too compared to a lot of other places. The Legion is a real community center where people can congregate and have a meal or have refreshments, and they make some money because largely volunteers, of course, and they always put it back into the community. I know several legions that they're, and one or two of them are revitalizing now as we speak through this season, and it's tremendous to see. Of course, originally it was set up for membership by people who were military veterans, and unfortunately we have, certainly from the Second World War, we have very, very few surviving veterans. I know one who's going to be 102 shortly.
Right.
And but the tradition has been carried on. The membership is more open now, and certainly the people who are involved now never saw wartime service in the Second World War. There may be a few Korean War veterans or Afghanistan veterans certainly still around, but the majority, of course, I can only barely remember some of the World War I veterans, and they were fine people. It was my honor and privilege to know some of them, and but anyway, my father was a member of the Legion and was a war veteran too, so I have a bit of a soft spot for the Legion and the work they do with the veterans, and more importantly, I guess now, with the communities.
Absolutely, yeah. It's wonderful to see everything that they do. And actually, this ties really well into our next story, because we have a Legion member in Neepawa that actually got recognized with an award. And you might think this story sounds familiar, and that's because we did have a similar story for Mary Murray not too long ago. This one is about Robert Ferguson. He was also presented with a King Charles III Coronation Medal. As I mentioned, he is a member of the Neepawa Legion. And this recognizes not only that, but so much more that he does currently and has done in the past. He has a long-standing record as working as a teacher, being a local volunteer for numerous things, and his involvement, long-standing involvement with Veteran Affairs Canada, and that was actually from 2006 to 2020, so 14 years, if I did that mental math right, and I'm pretty sure I did. So that's really impressive. And yeah, just to list off a couple things here. He's been with, Neepawa Air Cadets, the Royal Canadian Artillery Museum, Child and Family Services Board of Western Manitoba. So there's a lot there. And it's actually really interesting because only semi-related to this, I actually did see a picture of Mr. Ferguson there in the archives in a classroom, and he was teaching a bunch of stuff to do with I think it was one of the wars, and he had like a whole bunch of different pictures and like maps and everything, and it was a wonderful photo.
Yeah, Bob has got a medal here now, and maybe he has other medals, but he also is a collector of military memorabilia. I've seen some of his collection, and he has a lot of medals. He has some really, really cool stuff. Probably shouldn't say that because it's people who have collections don't really want everybody to know because of the security issue, but he knows a lot about Canadian military history. And he's also Mr. Enthusiasm, because every Monday morning, every Friday morning, he comes in here to the Neepawa Banner Press, and he picks up a bunch of papers, and they go to schools, and I think he takes some over to Shiloh, to the military base there, because we don't have deliveries into Shiloh. And he said, okay, I need 20 more papers. And so he's one of our many ambassadors, but he's certainly one of the most enthusiastic of our ambassadors for the newspaper.
For sure, yeah. He's a very spirited guy and definitely very involved in the community. I mean, you can see him pretty much anywhere, I think, if you go out and about there. So very happy to highlight Bob Ferguson here in this week's edition of the paper, and of course this week's edition of the Story Behind the Stories as well. So congratulations, Bob, on this honor. Our next story here is a bit of a different one here, with some growth of some such in Minnedosa in a few different ways, and that is actually to do with a small business because they are celebrating this month their second anniversary. And this was a very interesting story to do because I got to learn more about the business itself, but also I think I recall them being featured in one of the editions of What's the Big Idea, if I remember correctly.
That sounds right,
yeah. So kind of a nice follow-up story as well. This one is about Little Garden Next Door. As I said, it is based in Minnedosa, run out of the owner's home, and that is Kim Moffitt. Had a really wonderful chat with Kim there, all about the business and how she got started and a little bit about how this all works and looking into the future. And I have to say, very interesting. I previously did not have the opportunity to see sort of like just how she does this, but I did, of course, doing this story, get a little bit more perspective into that. And if you're not familiar, what she uses is these vertical grow walls, and that's how she grows her produce. And she does that with a number of different walls that are currently actually set up in her living room. It's run out of her home. And she uses those walls to provide greens and herbs to a couple of different local restaurants and about a 25-person monthly subscriber list within town. So providing fresh local vegetables from her home to restaurants in the wider community. That's pretty cool.
I think it's very cool, and it's very timely because right now everybody knows that Canada is under pressure because of the trade war, tariffs, and so everything's talking about buy Canadian, buy Canadian. And I heard an article the other day on radio, I think it was, and they're saying, well, all you can buy in Manitoba during the wintertime for vegetables is potatoes. Well, I don't think that's true. I'm not sure how big the production of the tomatoes is up at Dauphin. Minnedosa, you can buy greens right in downtown, right in urban Minnedosa. And I know that there's certainly Hutterite colonies that at least have in the past have cabbage and turnips and parsnips available right through the winter in their cold storage. So I think the story was a little misleading. But because it's going to be difficult to buy lettuce, for example, or spinach or whatever in the wintertime, in Canada, Canadian grown, this may be the answer, because this is not it's obviously a very feasible task. I don't know about financially, but physically it's certainly very feasible. And it doesn't take many pots to grow enough lettuce or spinach to keep a family going.
Yeah.
It's if you have a nice sunny south window, you can probably be gardening all year round if you're so inclined. So
yeah, for sure.
I'm really impressed with it. Just a side issue, I personally built, well, as after my university degree, the first experimental tomato greenhouse in Manitoba, and that was in 1970. And that from there, that industry has grown very, very slowly in Manitoba, but that was the first one that I know of in Manitoba. And I was working under a professor there, and we were growing tomatoes in a greenhouse in 1970, so that's 50-some years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really neat, and I mean, it's definitely compact. If you weren't familiar with how this works, you might be thinking like it's got to take up a lot of space, but really it it actually doesn't. And apparently they do come in some smaller sizes so that, you can fit them in a smaller home. So that was really neat.
I'd like to know, I would like to go see it because I'd like to see how they water. Because for those of you, you'll see in the paper, but it's little cups out of slant on a wall in a row like that. But how do they water them? That's I'd be interesting to know how maybe it's a sprinkle or a trickle system that they use. I don't know, but it looks to me like it's certainly some excellent looking growth in the picture, that's for sure.
Absolutely, yeah, very lush. The photo is in black and white because it's on page 8 this week, but you can just tell even from that, so it's really cool. And there was a lot that I couldn't include in the story because I was already kind of going a bit long. You got to pick and choose what goes in articles because, well, you only have so much space, right? But yeah, it was very fascinating talk. And, she talked about like how since it's right there, it's, it tastes and it smells a lot better than you might get in a grocery because, they're harvested on such and such a day and then they take time to travel and all that. But, these, they're just instant. So it'll be a bit more fresher for people. And she mentioned something as well. I don't have the exact percentage and numbers, but she mentioned something about nutrition and how the greens and stuff, when you harvest them, they lose like a certain number of nutrients within like the first, I think it was 36 hours. And if I remember correctly, it was actually a pretty significant number. I was just like, wow, I didn't know that. That's really neat to hear about.
My wife bought some lettuce, I think a week ago. It was really, really good lettuce. And it's grown hydroponically, so they just pull them out, there's no soil, and then just wrap the root around in a ball, and they ship the whole thing. So it's still drawing nutrients from the root,
right, en
route to the store and to your home. And it was probably I'm sure it was the best lettuce I've ever tasted. I think it's grown in Alberta. I think it said a product of Manitoba, but when you look a little deeper, I think it was actually Alberta. But doesn't matter, as long as we don't have to deal with the United States. I am not a big fan of the United States officially as of, well, for a long time actually, but more so now.
Very fair, understandable. And it's interesting you mentioned hydroponics. If I remember correctly, these are like semi-hydroponic. It's not like full hydroponics. There's still like a bit of a growth medium or like soil that's in there. But yeah, very interesting. Anyway, we do have some other stories, of course, to talk about, so won't dwell on this much longer, but definitely do give it a read there fully in depth and hear about the plans that they have for moving all their stuff into a dedicated space, which I'm really looking forward to them having a grand opening for sometime in the future. So yes, we will shift over to actually page 16 here. Going over to some sportsing. Wow, me talking about sportsing. What a surprise for everyone here. If you're a dedicated watcher, I'm not really a sports person.
You're a good sport. You're a good sport.
I'm a good sport.
You're a good sport.
I'm not super into sports. I don't really go out of my way to watch them or anything, but I think they're neat, and I always love a good sports success story.
When we twist your arm, you go take a hockey picture.
Yes. I will go to a hockey game here and there for a photo. But this has to do with some Neepawa athletes that went to nationals. And it's a pair of people here. First one, Laura Dembo, was part of a duo that actually made history for the University of Manitoba. Her partner there was Madison Lawrence, who's from Winnipeg, and they finished first and second overall in the high jump at the U Sports Track and Field Nationals. So that was pretty significant there. As well, we had Dax Turner, who won a silver medal at nationals in triple jump as well. So a pair of really good achievements there, and very proud to see Laura there on the next level, making waves. And of course, this wonderful update on Dax as well, who's been kind of someone that we've kept an eye on locally for quite a while.
Yeah, it's interesting. I believe Dax got his start, but he noticed on the plaque in the schools here that his father had won the local title back in his day. And so he decided he was going to be as good as Dad or better. I think he's out jumping his dad by quite a ways now. He came second this year. He was first last year in the nation. Lara was first last year and first again this year. Really, really top athletes. And their careers are probably winding down now, because I was talking to one of the parents, and the next step to Olympics is quite a bit, well, not quite a bit, but in a high jump, 5 or 6 inches means a lot, and that's what they'd have to get to, for example, to go on the Olympic team. So they'll probably take all this experience now and move into a career, but what a lead up to launching out into a career is to have this kind of tremendous achievement on your resume. It's pretty darn nice.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm excited to see what they do next in future years. So congratulations once again to you both, and of course to Madison Lawrence of Winnipeg as well. Wonderful job there. Keep up the good effort. We do still have some time, so I do want to mention on page 2 here, we do have a bit of an update from the Salvation Army here in Neepawa. Amanda Nottingale attended the one of the Rotary Club meetings here recently and gave a bit of an update on the facility and what they're looking to do, and a bit more information on the services they provide. Because, you know, new people in the community, etc., maybe some people that have been here for a while, maybe they aren't familiar with what the Salvation Army does, what services they provide, and all that sort of stuff. And of course, they do have a project that is in the works for better expanding their services there. So definitely give that a read. Ken, did you have anything in particular from this you'd like to highlight?
Well, they're taking over more space in the building we commonly still call, some is still the old co-op building downtown Neepawa. And they're taking over space that was occupied by another tenant, a business that has gone to another location, which is good. And they're going to be expanding their services there with this food bank and community kitchen and those sort of things. And I think that there's probably a need there. Like I don't suppose there's very many families that couldn't benefit from some of the nutrition training, cooking training, whatever. There's some really fine cooks in this part of the world, but I think maybe it's a bit of a lost, not a lost art, but it's probably not taught the way it was back a few years ago. There's a lot of instant food and microwave food, and that's fine, but there's a lot of, I see some of the commercials on TV for the delivered food, and I think, that's not food. That's not real food. And so if there's a place where they can learn this, I don't even know, this is a bit off topic, but I have no idea how extensive the home economics program is in the high school. I presume it's still there. Did you take home ec courses?
I did, yes,
okay.
Yes.
Well, you're not that old, so it's not that long ago. Yeah, okay. They probably still do, and that's a good thing. And some people say, "Oh, I'm not going to learn how to cook." Well, then fine, go fend for yourself and eat fast food the rest of your life. I don't care. Even I know how to cook.
Yeah, as long as you know something basic, I mean, that's pretty good, right? And you can just always, there's always opportunity to expand from there.
I get a little beyond macaroni and cheese.
Yes. I think the home ec course is still going. And at the very least, I also know that they have been doing periodically some stuff with Neepawa Eats Healthy as well. They bring students into Arts Forward and they do some cooking stuff that way. So that's pretty fun.
And we've had a full program on NAC TV here once or twice or a few times, maybe, Cooking with the Stars, which is kind of fun too.
Oh yeah. Speaking of food, actually, to do with this, something that people might find interesting from the story actually is the Salvation Army's food rescue, and really big number for last year. They rescued 52,387 pounds of food from local businesses. They get food from local businesses like 6 days a week. Wow. Which I already knew that they did food rescue type stuff, but I didn't know how much that was bringing in. I didn't know how often it was occurring. So that is really astounding. So definitely check out some details on there. But
that's 25 tons.
Yeah, that's a lot of food.
Well, it's 1,000 pounds. 1,000 pounds a week.
Yeah.
Wow.
Incredible, absolutely incredible. And basically what that is, just for a little bit of background on that, but I believe it was food that isn't expired, but it's like coming close to its best before, which those are two different, dates in terms of food. So what happens is they get the food before that date, and then they preserve it so that it's still good for their clients. So definitely take a look at all of that, and of course everything else we have in here. We do still have a couple minutes, I believe.
I want to give a shout out to a shout out to our advertisers and to our staff too, obviously. But this is a 24-page paper this week. Our Verdun paper was 24. Our Rivers paper was 16. And I think that we're going to be close to 24 again next week, at least for Neepawa. So thank you to our advertisers. Without advertising, we don't have any income, basically, because we're a free distribution paper. And another little trivia, we send the paper to the printer at 4 o'clock, or 2 o'clock, pardon me. No, try again. 1 o'clock every Wednesday afternoon. Our driver leaves about that same time, meets up with the paper around 4 o'clock, has it back here by 6 o'clock, and this week by 8:30, they had 11,000 papers collated and stuffed through the distribution room just from 6 o'clock till 8:30. I was pretty proud of them. They did a great job, so thank you to them too.
Absolutely, yeah, lots of hard work, and we're very thankful for everything that we do, that they do. We won't have time to talk about it in depth, unfortunately, but I do want to give a quick shout out as well to check out Ken's column this week on page 4. And we actually have a good letter from someone Ken knows very well on page 5 as well, in relation to his editorial regarding Canada and tariffs. And, well, maybe they're not quite smart about them and how they do them, I believe is kind of how that can be summarized. And tariffs, okay, but is there a good reason for them? Anyway, that is unfortunately all the time that we have for this week. So once again, please do check out the full copy of the paper if you can. Pick it up in your community, or you can find it online at neepawabanner.com. Do give us some story leads if you have them at 204-476-3401 or news@neepawabanner.com. You can also send us letters and thumbs up there, and photo submissions as well. And if you'd like to get in touch with us for ads, you can contact ads@neepawabanner.com. Thank you again on behalf of myself and Ken for joining us this week. Have a wonderful rest of your week.